All right, what's up, y'all? AWB, I'm back at it. What's up? What's up? Just want to start this off by saying, if you haven't already, go ahead and grab my book, Eyes on Authority, uh, How to Hold Public Servants Accountable for the streets, from the streets to the screen, documenting the fight for freedom. Yeah, so if you haven't already, go ahead and pick up my book. It helped me out. Yeah, I'm waiting for a couple people to drop in to actually come into the stream, and then I'll go ahead and get started. And as soon as you get in the stream, just say what's up. You know, hashtag stop muting body cam footage. Yeah, hashtag stop muting body cam footage. Let me see. Go ahead and get started. Yeah, hold on. So for the first video, we're at the Civil Rights Lawyers channel, and this video is titled "Cops Told Injured Woman to Walk to the Next Town. 13 minutes later, she was dead." Oh my goodness. So I can tell this one is going to be bad from the start. I haven't seen it yet, so I can only imagine. Let's go ahead and get started.
We can't give you a ride.
Please.
I don't have nowhere to put your stuff.
In the trunk?
My car is full. Just stay off the white line and keep walking, okay?
911, what's the address of your emergency? Did you hit this person or? Yeah, I mean, there was nothing that I could do. So you need an ambulance there? Yes. Well, I don't think an ambulance is going to help.
Two sheriff's deputies responded to reports of a woman lying on the shoulder of a highway.
You walked all the way here? Did you get a ride here or what?
No, I walked all the way from Little Rock to here.
The woman tells the deputies that she was fleeing domestic violence.
I'm walking.
Okay.
I'm trying to get away from this person.
I understand that, but where are you going to go?
I didn't have a Google map.
I understand that as well.
He took my phone.
After talking for nearly 18 minutes, the woman, who clearly appears to be drunk,
how much have you had to drink tonight?
Asked the deputies for a ride away from the pitch black side of the highway.
Would you guys mind dropping off here?
Our policy normally is we don't give rides. Let me check something real quick.
The deputies talk it over, but they decide they just don't want to.
They definitely give rides. They just take you to where you're not trying to go. That's the only thing. So for them to say they don't give rides is absolutely insane, and y'all know that. But they'll definitely take you to a ride to a place that you don't want to go to.
Not really.
Hi. Meet Wood.
You can walk. You just keep walking north till you get to Kennett, but you're probably going to get run over if you stay on this white line.
The woman pleads with the deputies to take her to a nearby gas station, but they tell her to just keep walking down the dark road.
It's a dark road. I can't see nothing without lights.
There's another gas station up the road about 2 miles.
Can you please take me there?
Listen to how terrible they are. And she's saying, can you please take me there? And public servants, who they're supposed to be, don't want to help her at all. So y'all see how it goes when you trying to get help from these people. But they don't mind pulling you over and take you to jail for, it don't even have to be a reason. It's for their feelings. But they won't take her, they won't help this lady out.
We can't give you a ride.
Please.
I don't have nowhere to put your stuff.
In the trunk?
My car is full.
That's cap. They could just put it in the back seat with her.
Just stay off the white line and keep walking, okay? Just stay off the white line and keep walking, okay?
13 minutes later, the woman was hit and killed by a tractor trailer. The truck's dash cam appears to show her purposefully sitting in the middle of the dark road.
13 minutes after they leave her.
Hey, G-Ma, just want to say what's up. I see you. You say popping in. You got to go. All right. Take care. Thank you for stopping by.
This haunting image from a semi-truck's camera. Michelle sitting in the middle of the road, making no attempt to get up, and the truck hits her.
The state of Missouri is now seeking to discipline both deputies for reckless disregard of this woman who was clearly in need. But according to their lawyer, the officers did nothing wrong.
There are no domestic violence shelters in Dunklin County, and it's wholly inappropriate. It's not fair to them in the situation that they were in that night. What they did was a reasonable. I think that is abhorrent that the Department of Public Safety would even consider reprimanding him.
Is the lawyer right? Was it the job of police officers to proactively make sure that this woman on the side of the road is okay, to drive her to a gas station, or to forcibly take her to a hospital even though she declined an ambulance? Should the officers be disciplined? Now, one of the officers did not have his body cam on, from my understanding, but one of them did, and I have the full body cam. I'll show it to you, and I also have the full police reports. I'll show you these things, and you can make up your mind for yourself. I have a few other things as well. Let's go through the body cam.
And some kind of medical distress?
Kinda.
Okay, what's going on? Sorry. There's nothing on that side. What's on the other side? Okay, what happened?
This involves deputies Cobb and Philpott from the Dunklin County Sheriff's Office. This is in Missouri. I have the police report. In their words, this is why they were there. On July 9th, 2023, the Dunklin County Sheriff's Office received a report of a white female sitting on the side of the roadway. Deputy Philpott and I located a white female lying on the shoulder of the roadway. The subject was lying on the ground with her head facing the grass south and her feet facing north, near the white fog line. She was lying on the shoulder of the roadway on the eastbound side. Next to the subject was several bags of property and a sweet case scattered around her. Miss Sanders was asleep when approached, to which Deputy Philpott woke her up.
I've been walking from Little Rock.
Okay. Do you need an ambulance first and foremost?
No, I've been there, done that, done everything that I could do.
Okay.
I'm trying to get away from him because
Who's him?
the person who did this to me. Okay.
I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to see what's wrong with you.
I keep trying to walk, but I can't.
Okay.
My whole left shoulder is broken.
Good. Did you go to the hospital?
Yes.
Which hospital did you go to?
Everything is accounted for in North Little Rock.
Right.
And I had to lay down to just lay down for a minute because I've been walking a lot of miles.
Understandable.
Where are you going?
Far away from him.
My thing is, why are you sitting here questioning her and ask her where she's going if you don't want to take her there? What's the point?
Are you going anywhere in particular?
No.
Do you have an ID on you?
Yes, I do.
Can I see it, please?
There you go. Do you have an ID? What does that have to do with anything that's going on right now? It makes absolutely no sense.
When did you get beat up?
Thursday.
When did you get beat up? What type of question is that? Y'all can tell, like, the question, that line of questioning is so crazy and just make absolutely no sense at all. Why would you ask her where she's going if you're not going to take her there? What are you asking her for her ID for? She didn't commit a crime, and it's not like y'all really trying to help her.
Day, last week.
The knot on your head looks fresh. Like
Do what?
the knot on your head looks fresh.
Yeah, these are new.
What happened there?
After the fact that
You just said it looked like you got beat up and recently, but you got a knot on your head. Where's that from? What? It's so weird.
that it happened, you know, I didn't press more charges for this.
Where'd it happen at? In Little Rock?
Yeah.
You-
I didn't press any more charges. I'm just trying to get away from him.
You walked all the way here? Did you get a ride here or what?
No, I walked all the way from Little Rock to here.
Okay.
Hence why I'm like,
Exhausted? Exhausted, yeah.
yeah. That was.
Can you find your ID for me?
I'm just trying to get away.
Okay.
Can you find your ID for me?
There's nothing wrong.
Why are you searching for? Why are you waiting for her ID so bad? Like, what is having somebody's ID gonna tell you in a situation like this? There's no reason for them to ask for ID. It's not to help her in any type of way. So remember that. Whenever they're asking you for your ID, you gotta think: is this for them helping me, or what?
Trying to get away. He took my phone. Hence, I don't know where I am. I was at wherever that gas station is, far away. They told me
sleeplessness, mood swings, brain fog, vaginal dryness. We need to talk about menopause.
keep going into Missouri this way.
Well, you're in Missouri now. You're
Yes.
in Cardwell, Missouri.
So that's why I kept going this way.
Okay.
But with my shoulder being broken, it's very hard.
Can you get your ID for me?
I don't even, honestly, officer, I don't even know if I have it because he took everything from me. Because I remember I was trying to buy cigarettes and they thought I was too young. I was like, oh my God, really?
What's your last name?
It's Anders. Michelle.
Anders?
Yes. I had no warrants or anything like that.
Spell Michelle for me. What's your middle name and your social? Your ID is it?
Middle name and social? For what?
Out of Arkansas?
No, I'm from
Your ID?
like that.
Spell Michelle for me. What's your middle name and your social? Your ID is it out of Arkansas?
No, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay.
Go ahead, 382.
Last name Anders, Adam, Nora, David, Edward, Robert, Sam. First name is Shell, common spelling. Middle initial, S. Sam, date of birth.
I'm getting a not on file through Central Square, running it. I'm going to run it through actual mules. Stand by. 382-7149, Tennessee, Michelle Anders at Memphis, Tennessee. Shows a Class B license that has been revoked.
Okay. You don't know where you're going? I mean, what are you wanting to do? What are you wanting to do?
I'm sorry, I can't see you.
What are you wanting to do?
I'm walking.
Okay.
I'm trying to get away
Where are you?
from this person.
I understand that, but where?
Yes, what? Yeah, so what do you want to do? She says she walking. She trying to get away from somebody.
Where are you going to go?
I don't even have a Google map.
I understand that
he
as well.
took my phone.
So where are you going to go?
That last gas station down there,
Mhm.
they told me if I wanted to go back to Arkansas, go left. If I went straight to Missouri, go right. And that's what I'm doing.
Where are you going? Is what I'm asking you.
I don't even have a clue.
Okay. How much have you had to drink tonight?
Nothing.
Oh, I saw the whiskey bottle sitting there.
No,
Well, I'm asking you.
that was from last night.
Okay.
Okay, sir. I was looking for my water bottle a while ago because I'm so dehydrated. I've been walking since Little Rock. I mean, Little Rock.
You can continue to walk, or we can call an ambulance, take you to a hospital somewhere, and get you some help.
Look, my whole shoulder,
Which one do you want to do?
My whole shoulder is broken. They've already assessed that. They gave me a disc. I've got it in there with my paperwork from the hospital. They told me I'm probably going to have surgery. I got to go to an orthopedic doctor. But what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to get far away from him.
Understandable.
Well, Jonesboro and Little Rock are a pretty good ways away from each other, so I think you're fine.
Well, I know Little Rock's that way, or Louisville. And they said if I keep going this way, it's Missouri.
I understand that, but where are you trying to go in Missouri? Because there's nothing down here. There's no hospitals. There's nothing. You have family in Missouri?
No.
So where are you wanting to go? It's what I'm trying to get from you. Are you just
Away from the person that's beating her up. That's it. They're making it, instead of trying to help her, they just interrogating her.
gonna live out on the street? What?
No, I'm not a street person, sir.
So what is your goal? What are you trying to get to?
Honestly, Chicago.
You're a long ways from
I
Chicago.
know, but that's where my oldest son is. He's 22 years old.
All right.
And I know bad things happen to people in major cities because I've lived in so many major cities, but I figured, I'm strong enough. I could walk this.
Well,
not that I want to because it's hard with a broken arm and everything else. I mean, it's hard.
Well, do you require?
And I don't know where the next thing is.
Well, if you keep walking that way,
I don't have a phone because he took it, and I don't even know where I'm going.
Following this road. Stay on the Duncan County. It's Camp, Missouri.
Would you guys mind just dropping off here so that saves me long bill?
Our policy normally is we don't give rides. Let me check something real quick.
Why are there so many mosquitoes?
Like I said, the stagnant water around these fields.
Really?
She said she walked from Little Rock to here.
Bullshit. She can walk. Stay on the road. You just keep walking north till you get to Kennett. But if you're going to stop and rest, don't stop on the white line.
I'm sorry, I can't see this.
Well, you don't need to see me. Just listen to what I'm telling you.
Okay.
Keep walking north to get to Kennett. If you're going to stop and rest, lay in the grass or stay off this white line, or you're probably going to get run over if you stay on this white
No,
line.
I've kept
Your feet was on the white line when we come up to you.
That
So,
was promiscuous.
well, I'm just telling you.
Because
I don't want you to get run over.
It's a dark road. I can't.
If you don't want her to get ran over, she asks you to help her get to where she's trying to go, and you say no, you can't give her a ride. So you obviously don't care about her health.
Do nothing without lights at all.
You probably should have stayed at Mr. T's till daylight then.
No, they told me. The woman told me. She said you got bags. You can't leave your bags.
You can sit in the parking lot.
She said I will call the police on you.
Okay.
I said for what? I'm doing nothing at all, and so that scared me, because I don't want to get in trouble for anything.
Right.
And then one lady, she said, "Look, if you want to stay in Missouri, go this way."
Mm-hmm.
And that's.
Can I show you something that kind of messed me up? This is a ribbon that represents.
What I did.
There's another gas station up the road about 2 miles, so.
Can you please take me there?
We can't give you a ride. I don't have enough room to put all your stuff in my car.
Please.
I don't have nowhere to put your stuff.
In the trunk?
I'm telling you, my car is full. So. Just stay off the white line and keep walking, okay? You're welcome.
So that was the nearly 18-minute conversation that took place between Michelle Anders and deputies Cobb and Philpott. So if we skip to the last paragraph of the police report written by Deputy Cobb, it's completely defensive. Here's what it says. While speaking with Anders, I observed what looked like a bottle of alcohol sticking up from her purse. Anders was asked if she had been drinking, to which she stated no. She drank some the night before. It should be noted, Anders did not appear to be intoxicated or impaired and was not slurring her words, nor was she stumbling or anything of the sort. She seemed to be of sound mind. I'm pretty sure that this is what George Orwell would refer to as doublespeak. I mean, who are we going to believe, you or our lying eyes? I mean, we just saw this woman who claims to have a broken arm literally slur her words. You saw a bottle of alcohol sticking out of her bag. You thought she was intoxicated. You pointed that out to her. We watched it on the video.
I didn't have a Google map.
I understand that as well.
He took my phone.
So where are you going to go?
That last gas station down there, they told me if I wanted to go back to Arkansas, go left. If I went straight to Missouri, go right. That's what I'm doing.
Where are you going? Is what I'm asking you.
I don't even have a clue.
Okay. How much have you had to drink tonight?
Nothing.
Oh, I saw the whiskey bottle sitting there.
No,
I'm asking you.
that was from last night.
She completely sounded inebriated, and yet to cover your own rear ends, you're putting all of these lies in this report that we can clearly see are lies. And the reason is because the last part of the report says this. After this, Anders was informed to stay on the right side of the fog line and out of the roadway. Anders was informed if she needed to rest or sit or lay in the grass or to stay on the right side of the fog line. Anders was informed approximately 2 miles east was a gas station to which she could probably stay and rest. Anders was informed if she continued on US Highway 412, she would end up in Kennett. Anders thanked us for stopping to check on her, to which Deputy Philpott and I cleared the scene. What he neglects to mention is that maybe she thanked them, but that was right after she had finished begging them to drive her to that gas station. But you refused. She begged you for help, and you left this woman alone in the dark on the side of this busy highway. And this is kind of crazy. At the very bottom of the police report written by Deputy Cobb, there's a supplemental report. So after he finishes saying they told her to walk on down the road, now, same evening, supplemental report. The sheriff's office received a 911 call from a semi truck driver who was traveling east on Highway 412 near Mr. T's. The truck driver stated that he had just ran over someone with his truck. Deputy Philpott, Missouri State Highway Patrol, Medic 1, and I were dispatched to the scene. Deputy Philpott and I arrived on the scene first, to which we observed a white female whom we knew to be Michelle Anders, lying in the middle of the roadway. Anders was obviously deceased. As I mentioned, now the Missouri Department of Public Safety is looking to discipline both of these deputies. This is an excerpt of the complaint against them, and it says, after Philpott and Cobb left Miss Anders on the side of the road, Miss Anders committed suicide by sitting in the middle of US Highway 412, and she was struck by a semi-truck. Deputy Cobb acted with reckless
Wow.
disregard for the safety of Michelle Anders by leaving her on the side of a major thoroughfare at night, despite knowing that she was a potential domestic violence victim, severely injured, and intoxicated. By leaving an intoxicated and injured person on the side of a major thoroughfare at night and telling her to continue walking along the shoulder, Deputy Cobb created a substantial risk of death or bodily harm for Michelle Anders. So the official conclusion here is that this is, rather than being an accident, that Miss Anders committed suicide by purposefully sitting down in front of this semi truck. There is dash cam from that semi truck, which appears to corroborate this.
Not the effects of Viagra, but faster? Meet Rose Sparks. They contain sildenafil and tadalafil.
13 minutes after they leave her, this haunting image from a semi-truck's camera. Michelle sitting in the middle of the road, making no attempt to get up, and the truck hits her.
However, her sister does not believe it was suicide.
She was not suicidal. I mean, even in jail, you get phone calls. Even in jail, you get water. They left her with absolutely no hope.
Do you think she would be alive today if they had helped her?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do. Yes, I do. Because she would have called me, and I would have driven 1,000,000 miles to get her.
And actually went to the scene and took some footage. This is the actual spot.
Wow.
1250 US Highway 412. Speed limit is 60 miles an hour.
So you gotta look at this road. For one, when it's nighttime, this is pitch black. You can't see nothing. Y'all know this was absolutely insane. And at nighttime, this would be pitch black. But they wouldn't help her, even though she asked them to help her.
And she also has the internal dash cam from the semi driver, which she believes shows that he was not paying attention. But now Deputy Philpott and Cobb have hired lawyers to fight the disciplinary proceedings, and they're pushing back, claiming they did nothing wrong here.
There are no domestic violence shelters in Dunklin County. There are no social workers. There's nowhere for him to have taken this. It's some extreme armchair quarterbacking that we're doing to these officers, and it's wholly inappropriate. It's not fair to them in the situation that they were in that night. What they did was a reasonable a course of action. I think that it's abhorrent that the Department of Public Safety would even consider reprimanding him.
But clearly there is law enforcement brass that disagree, including this expert that was hired as a consultant by the TV news.
At the very least, she was clearly intoxicated. You could tell that from the body camera footage. They should never have left her on the side of the road like that. Even if she refused an ambulance, that doesn't mean you don't call one anyway. You call an ambulance over, let them evaluate her. And if she is not able to look after herself, you could take her into protective custody if you have to, if she refuses to. That's done all the time. I think they made a conscious decision that they just didn't want to deal with it for whatever reason. I don't know the reason for that, but they left her roadside, and we see how that ended up, which is a tragic situation.
And here is the response to him from the deputy's lawyers.
They had absolutely no basis for protective custody, a 96-hour hold, or to arrest her for anything. So if they would have followed that expert's advice, they would have a civil lawsuit on their hands. Not to sound
Still do.
crass or heartless, but if they had done exactly what the state of Missouri is saying that they should have done, the likelihood is they would have only changed the location of her suicide.
What do you think? Do you agree with the lawyer? I mean, he does have a good point there that police officers should respect the Fourth Amendment rights of people who are walking down the side of the road. How many videos have we looked at where cops have unnecessarily harassed people just trying to walk down the side of the road? In fact, they made a movie about it with Sylvester Stallone. But this isn't a video about cops harassing somebody. Cops can also do wrong. They can also commit misconduct when they fail to act when they should. As far as the law goes, Missouri is in the Eighth Circuit, and the case law pretty much says that if police officers have probable cause to believe that some vulnerable person might walk into danger or even commit suicide, then they have this affirmative duty to act to protect that person, especially if they're in their custody, which may or may not have been the case here. Her ID was demanded. Arguably, she was subjected to an investigatory detention. At least under one way of looking at it, she was released to the side of the road. Now, the officers would say that she was never in their custody. They were just checking on her. They did not have probable cause to arrest her or to take her into any sort of protective custody. Now, I would disagree with that. They arrived there for a reason because there was this woman in a dangerous situation, dangerous to motorists, dangerous to herself, obviously. What they found was somebody who was possibly suffering from mental issues, who claimed to be basically seriously injured. She said she had a broken arm, who appeared to be inebriated, who had a bottle of liquor with them, who was slurring her words, who appeared to be a victim of violence, who was claiming to be a victim of domestic violence, who was pleading for their help. And she didn't ask for much. She just asked to be driven 2 miles down the road to a gas station.
That's it.
In their private conversation, they acknowledged that they had a choice to drive her or to not drive her. And their choice was to not drive her. That's not really asking for a whole lot. That's where the lawyer's arguments are a red herring. They did not have to have probable cause to agree to drive this woman to a gas station. At the very least, they could have done that. That's what she was asking for. That wouldn't have violated her rights in any way. That would not have exposed them to a lawsuit. That would just be basic human decency, basic kindness. And that is what was missing here. These cops were spitting all over the place, basically acting like complete assholes. They literally had one job and they failed. But let me know what you think in a comment. Do you agree with the lawyer for the officer? If so, let me know why. As always, I'll put all the contact information that I can find in the first pinned comment below so that you can express your protected free speech to your public servants. I'll continue to follow this one, so please subscribe here and at thecivilrightslawyer.com. Remember, our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Deal with it.
All right. So again, the title of this video is Cops Told Injured Woman to Walk Home, to walk to the next town. 13 minutes later, she was gone. Which is, it's so wild. So what are y'all thoughts on that? Should they have just stopped and helped her, or was it not their business? What y'all think? All right, we got. So, if I play another video. This is another one from Civil Rights Lawyer channel, and this is titled "Officer Assaults Girl in her driveway over noise complaint, gets charged." So, for everybody that asks why don't I put the links in the description, I always acknowledge whose content I'm actually reviewing or looking at. So if you want to go and see this video by yourself, then that's why I give you the title in the channel, in the whose channel is coming from.
Go inside. Now, move.
An Oklahoma City police sergeant has now been charged by a prosecutor with assault and battery after he was called to a noise complaint while on duty. Basically, neighbors complained that these people were music in their driveway at 4 a.m.
Vámonos, no más. Go inside. Okay. Now.
This is the same police department that I just did a video on where the officer slammed the elderly Vietnamese man to the ground.
Your vehicle is not like that. Sit out. No. Sit out. Sit on the ground.
He has not been charged with any crimes. What did this guy do that was so terrible that now he's charged with a crime while that other dude is not?
I pay taxes too, stupid. That's why I'm here, smart ass. Go the inside now. Go.
Let's go through it and try to figure that out together. As you know, we like to go through the most interesting and relevant body cam footage or whatever else I find, and we expose the facts and also ask the question, well, what is the law? So if you like to both be entertained and educate yourself on the law at the same time, I encourage you to subscribe both here and at the blog at thecivilrightslawyer.com. This particular incident happened on September 15th at around 3:30 a.m. Yes, that's in the morning. Basically, this was a noise complaint. This involves Sergeant Rasan Gordon for an on-duty encounter that he had with residents at a house. One thing I found in instances where police departments discipline their officers, one thing they really don't like is when police officers use expletives, when they use profane language in their encounters with the public. Ironically, of all the things that they do, there's no constitutional right to not have police officers curse at you or use profane language with you. But it seems like the internal investigations, that's what they love to get their officers for. But as a common sense matter, it is very unprofessional and it tends to really escalate situations unnecessarily, which then leads to constitutional violations, which maybe we will see in this video. So here, within 1 minute of walking up to this group of people who are in a driveway, drinking and playing music over a speaker next to a vehicle in the driveway, the officer walks up and he's already using expletives. He's already using profane language. Watch how that completely unnecessarily escalates the situation.
Go inside. Vámonos, no más. Go inside. Okay. Now. Okay. Go.
So
Move. Go. Más. Go inside.
he's saying no more. Like, look at these people, grown people. He's like, no more. Like, what are you talking about? No more.
Okay. Now. Okay. Go. Move. Go. Okay.
¿Con quién andas tú? No, right in the garage. In the garage. Right there? You can be in the garage. Open the garage. ¿Con quién andas?
Take the speaker and go inside.
Yeah, okay.
Go inside. These are grown people playing music outside and drinking the beer. And he's talking about no, you can't do that no more. Go inside.
Now,
who are you?
Okay, but that's not the way. You shouldn't be talking like that.
You shouldn't be out here waking people up at 3 in the morning, but that's what you're doing.
We're not waking anybody up.
Well, then why did I get called?
Because she's racist.
That she wasn't the one that called, smart ass.
Yes, she is.
No, she wasn't. It wasn't a chick. It was a dude.
She be coming out.
It was a dude.
Yeah, she wants to come out and talk her smack.
It was a dude. So you want to go to jail for public talks?
What public talk? I'm not
You're
driving
drinking.
anything. Okay, but I'm at home.
Okay, you're still in the public. This is go inside.
No, sir. It's 7.
Just think about that. Do you want to go for public intoxication? I'm at home. You're still in public. What type of logic? You know, like they just say the most ridiculous stuff where you like it never makes sense.
7 feet.
Go inside now.
7 feet.
You obviously don't know what you're talking about. You're ignorant.
I know what I'm talking about.
Well, then take her inside.
As you are 7 feet from back there. It's public.
You're ignorant. Go inside.
It's public.
Mueve. Go inside now.
Not only is he acting unprofessionally and using expletives, but this drunk chick knows more about Oklahoma law apparently than the officer does. I mean, he doesn't even stop and think public intox. Well, what's the first word in the name of that crime? Public. She's literally in a driveway on private property. Not an Oklahoma lawyer, but my cursory review of Oklahoma public intox law, which I think probably mirrors most states. In Oklahoma, you are not considered to be publicly intoxicated if you're on private property, even if the public can see you because you were in a driveway. If she were down on a sidewalk or in the street, of course, that would be different. Apparently, public intoxication is a misdemeanor in Oklahoma, and you can be charged if you're intoxicated and disturb the peace. If convicted, you could...
In public, if they're at a house, that's private property. So she's in a private place right now. Yes, she's outside in public, but she still have the privacy of the house she's at right now.
You could face a fine of $10 to $100 and or jail time of 5 to 30 days.
Go. I pay taxes too, stupid. I pay taxes too.
Okay, we both do.
Okay, great. What's your point?
I'm paying you. You're public.
So I pay myself too, right?
No, you don't.
So I don't pay taxes? You're ignorant. Go.
No, you're ignorant. You think we're ignorant.
Go.
No what?
Go.
No what?
I said go.
He is terrible. And his attitude is likely to... He causes bad situations. He makes things worse.
You can't listen. Go.
Oh, I can listen, but I know my damn right.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. You're coming in the wrong
You're about to be going for disorderly now.
And she came out here.
You're about to go for disorderly.
What?
You're about to go for disorderly conduct. It's called disorderly conduct. Look it up.
I mean, it's crazy to think about it. Like, it used to cost millions to advertise on TV, and now because of
Disorderly conduct in Oklahoma is defined as behavior that is intended to disturb the peace or quiet of others and can include loud noises, threatening language, fighting, or other actions such as shooting guns, for instance. Disorderly conduct is illegal in Oklahoma, both on public property as well as on private property. But the legislature in Oklahoma does not have the constitutional ability to authorize police officers to violate the Fourth Amendment. So there may be an issue here about whether or not this police officer can arrest people at this particular private property location without a warrant. But we'll come back to that.
Take the speaker.
Yeah, hey, Chelsea. Hey, it's okay. What is it?
It's 4 in the morning.
I know. Sorry. It doesn't matter what time it is.
Yes, it is. Look up the loud noise disturbance.
Oh, then you could put a complaint. They could put a.
They did. That's why I'm here, smart ass.
No, and you could put a complaint on writing.
Okay, that's why I'm here. You've been told multiple times.
Hey, what's that? No.
So we have this really unprofessional situation where a police officer is arguing with these individuals, this one woman in particular, and he's ordering them into the house. And for the most part, as you'll see, they comply. So they go in, they go into the house. The woman he's arguing with actually goes into the house. She seems to be inebriated, and she's really incensed at the way she feels she's being treated very unprofessionally, which she was by this police officer. Add on top of that, whatever altercation or argument was taking place with a neighbor before the officer even got there. And it sounds like maybe he had been there once before. But in any event, he's ordering them inside, and they actually comply. The group slowly moves into the garage as this argument just continues. But then the officer re-engaged the argument numerous times instead of leaving.
If I come out here again, you and all the homeowners are going to jail. Yes.
Listen to how crazy that is. If I come out here again and take you to jail, for what?
Yes, I can. It's a lawful order. It's a lawful order from a police officer. You've been warned multiple times. If I come back out here again, you and all the homeowners are going to jail. It's on camera.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Keep the music down.
Then you can do what you have to do.
Absolutely. That's why I'm here.
Then do
I normally give people slack, but the crap that it's 4 in the morning is ridiculous.
No, it's because my thing is, it's not that it's 4 in the morning. There's been neighbors who actually do come, who are with noise other days. Not today, but other days. She comes out here and want to talk her shit. That's not the way.
She didn't call. It was a dude.
What dude?
His name is Tom. I don't know.
So they want to act like Tom. I'm just telling you this because she did come out here.
Okay, she may have been the one that called the first time. I don't know. I just know it was a dude that called this time.
It's not the first time.
I said she may have called the first time. I don't know.
Okay, but you're wait. Okay, come on. But the way you're coming at us.
Because you guys are standing there all moping instead of moving inside, like I said.
Okay, listen. We have to do what we have to do. Yes.
Yeah, and you guys weren't moving.
But the way you're acting, the way you're talking, that's not the right way.
You know why? I came out here the first time and I said, or when I came out here the first, shut up and let me talk. When I first came up here and I said, hey, go inside. You guys want to stand here, hee hee ha ha, hee hee ha ha.
You didn't come out here the first time.
I'm talking about when I first showed up. Listen, that's your problem. You don't listen.
No, you said the first time I came
said when I first showed up.
You said when I first come
When
up
I
here.
first showed up, you guys were all sitting here on your phone, lee hee ha ha, cackling, and I said, go inside. None of you guys moved. The only person that moved was the one that grabbed the cooler. You over here, ha ha hee ha, and on the FaceTime and shit.
No, I wasn't on
Someone was on FaceTime.
Okay, someone, but that was me.
And when the woman stepped back out of the garage just about 1 foot, the officer became irritated. The officer began to lose his temper. And it was at that point that a use of force took place. Here, watch.
The average person sees around 10,000 online ads daily. Here's how a man's life would change if he...
Go the inside now. Go. Get inside now.
How would you do that?
You want to go? You just hit me. You're like that.
It's no reason for that at all. Not even a little bit. Like, what was the point in this? They all went back inside, or they all went back into the garage. Okay, and took the speaker away. Okay, it's over now. Leave. but he want to stay and talk crazy to grown people.
Yeah, you just put your arm on my shoulder. It's on camera.
It's hard to see exactly what happened through the body cam, but this is what investigators found occurred. When the woman stepped back out of the garage about 1 foot, the officer became irritated at the woman for being argumentative. And it was at that point that Officer Gordon forcefully shoved her back into the garage of the home while telling her to get in effing side now. The woman was sent 5 to 7 feet back into the garage, landing on the floor. She struck an object in the garage. Investigators noted that the woman was not acting in a manner consistent with being a threat to the officer or anyone else around. The officer's shove exceeded any reasonable force authorized during this incident. The charging documents describes the arrest of the woman, describing that the officer twisted her arm in the process of putting cuffs on her.
Put your hands behind your back now. Put your hands behind your back.
Yep, you sure are.
He told her that she was being arrested for public drunkenness and disorderly conduct. However, the investigation found that Officer Gordon tried to release her at the scene and denied her 8 separate requests to speak to a supervisor.
Congratulations, you bought yourself a ticket to jail. Told you to go inside.
No, sir.
Yes, I did.
That's not the way.
What's not the way?
What you just did. And your camera is not on. I hope you have it on.
What does red mean? I told you, you're going to go to jail for
No,
public
sir.
drunk.
That's not
and
the right.
disorderly.
No, sir.
What is your name?
And yours?
Sergeant Gordon.
Okay, that's your number?
2214.
2214. Okay.
It's going to be on your booking.
Thank you.
The police report actually shows that instead of taking this woman for booking at the Oklahoma County Detention Center, he actually took her to the public inebriation alternative, where a portable breath test result was 0.046. It doesn't give her age, but even if she was driving, she's well below the usual legal limit of 0.08. So she wasn't actually that drunk, at least not by the time she was tested. Afterwards, the woman sought medical treatment after she was released and was diagnosed with a bone contusion and swelling on the elbow. Additionally, she sustained a contusion on her head with a knot that was present for over 10 days. So the officer is being criminally charged for violating the woman's Fourth Amendment rights by using excessive force because he used violence during a situation where it was unreasonable to use violence because she didn't pose a threat. Police officers are not allowed to inflict violence upon people just because they think they're authorized to arrest somebody. It is basically a self-defense analysis at heart. And one thing that the media reports and the charging documents completely either missed or ignored, really there's an elephant in the room here. She was arrested for disorderly conduct, okay, but where was she arrested? Just about within the threshold of the garage of this home.
Go the inside now.
This did not occur in a public place. Now, in Oklahoma, a police officer can arrest an individual without a warrant under specific circumstances. An officer may arrest a person without a warrant when they have committed or attempted to commit a public offense in the officer's presence. Disturbing the peace, if observed by the officer, would fall under this category. Constitutionally speaking, to make a warrantless arrest, a police officer must have probable cause. If the officer observed the homeowner's actions directly, then that very well could be probable cause for disturbing the peace. However, this was on private property. But like I told you, even if a homeowner is on their own private property, like a driveway, they could still commit the crime of disturbing the peace. But can the officer arrest the individual? Oklahoma is in the 10th Federal Circuit. So looking at 10th Circuit case law, generally the 10th Circuit, in my opinion, would consider really anywhere in somebody's driveway to be within the curtilage of their residence. Here, the beginning of the interaction takes place, maybe halfway down the driveway.
Vámonos, no más. Go inside.
Okay.
Now.
but the arrest itself and the use of force takes place almost in the garage. So much further up the driveway. I think very clearly this arrest took place within the curtilage of the home, which legally speaking is basically the same thing as it taking place inside the home. So if an officer is going to arrest somebody inside their home, they have to have by default an arrest warrant. There are exceptions. Exigent circumstances is the big one. A subcategory of that is hot pursuit. So if the homeowner was in a public place, say in the street just before that, and the officer observed the homeowner committing a crime in the street, disorderly conduct, and then the individual ran in the house. If the officer was in hot pursuit from the street into the house, that could qualify as an exception under exigent circumstances, hot pursuit. In the absence of facts showing a hot pursuit, in order for exigent circumstances to apply to justify the arrest that was made here, there would have to be facts showing that the officer had a belief that there was some immediate need, where he believed that there was an immediate need to act then without going to get a warrant because there was going to be some imminent injury or somebody was in distress. Even if all the other allegations were true regarding the noise complaint, that would not meet the standards that have been set forth by the 10th Circuit in exigent circumstance cases. So the Oklahoma City Free Press spoke with an officer with this department, Master Sergeant, I guess that's what that means, Gary Knight of the Oklahoma PD. And they asked him about the effect on other officers where an officer goes this far off of their training. Here's what he said. As a police department, we hate to see one of our guys do something that's going to give the department a black eye. Sadly, people tend to stereotype police officers, and if one does something that the public deems as excessive or over the top, people tend to view the entire police department that way. They view us as a whole, and they assume that if one officer is doing it, then the entire department is doing it. That's true. But remember, this is the same department where this happened.
You're not a child, you're a man. So stop wearing so many layers to go outside and get bearskin tactical hood.
Your vehicle is not like that.
Sit out!
No.
You sit up!
Look at that.
Get on the ground!
As of today, I've searched and there is nothing out there about that officer being charged criminally in any way. And so I ask, let me know in a comment, do you think that what you see in this video where the officer is being charged, if that warrants criminal charges, what should happen in the case where the elderly gentleman was violently slammed onto the ground and very seriously injured? Why have there not been charges yet in that case? Why do we not have statements from the department about how bad that was and how that officer gives good officers a bad name? It puts a black eye on the department and how that's a bad apple. Because right now, as far as I can tell, they're circling the wagons supporting the officer who seriously injured the elderly man. Whereas they throw this officer completely under the bus for just shoving and twisting an arm of this woman in her driveway. Both of these are constitutional violations that should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. But oftentimes we see where law enforcement picks and chooses who are they going to punish and make an example of, and who are they going to circle the wagons for and assemble the thin blue line to defend. The law either is protected and enforced equally. We either have equal justice under the law or we don't. We either enforce constitutional rights for all of us or we have none. Remember, they admit just in this case that where the public sees police officers doing something wrong, that's really the only thing that kicks them into gear to police their own. So I urge you to not let up about the other case. I'll put all the contact information in the first pinned comment below. If these are your public servants, make your opinion known. Because like this woman said to the police officer, they work for the public. They do work for the public. Hold them accountable. If you want to continue to follow this, I definitely will. Subscribe both here and at the blog at thecivilrightslawyer.com. If you have incidents you want me to look at, you can use my submission link below. Also use the email address that's attached to my YouTube account. I can't get back to everybody, but I'll do the best I can to look through everything. Remember, our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Deal with it.
Yeah, so what are y'all thoughts? You know, to me, it's just wild that we continue to go through this over and over again. But I got another video I want to pull up for y'all. Yeah. Come on. Pull this up for you. Hold on. Go ahead and add the screen. And so this is the Alarm Crime Network, and this video is titled Full Integration, Interrogation. Sheriff allegedly tries to intimidate cop after reporting police chief.
Jared Rigby is accused of bullying an officer who reported his police chief for excessive use of force.
He has threatened our whole department.
Well, because Lucas, it really comes down to the future, your future in the police department.
The video of him intimidating the officer was sickening.
Nobody's above the law.
In March 2021, Officer Lucas McTaggart thought he was responding to a routine drunk and disorderly call. He was training a new member of the force, and most of his attention was given to making sure he was clear on what was the correct procedure for the situation. The suspect resisted, which wasn't unusual for his level of intoxication. So at first, McTaggart wasn't concerned. After all, other experienced officers were on the scene, including Chief Dave Booth. As the suspect continued to resist, McTaggart was shocked to see Booth's hand on their throat, since this went directly against department policy. It was also concerning since Booth was a superior officer, and it could damage McTaggart's career if he said anything. Still, he believed excessive force was used and made a report. This led to an investigation, where McTaggart was made to feel as if he were the one who had done something wrong.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's September 1st, 2021, about 7:10 in the morning. So what we want to do is provide you some intro to what it is we're doing, ask some questions, and you're welcome to ask questions throughout. Ultimately, we want to talk about a written statement as well. That's kind of overall the big picture of what we're here to do. So we're doing an internal affairs investigation for Heber City Police Department. Okay. I've been asked by the mayor to do that. This has to do with the Jesse Rodriguez incident on March 31st, 2021. And as part of that, I think we're all on the same page, but just to make sure, there was already a criminal investigation of this. So there are actually two. So one focused on Jesse James Rodriguez, and the other one focused on whether there were criminal violations of excessive use of force. And so the Rodriguez one is still ongoing in court, and the other one is that there's no criminal charges pertaining to officers. So when it comes to this interview and us doing whether it's an IA or you want to call it an administrative review or whatever it is, it's the same thing. So this isn't a Garrity interview. Okay. So Garrity interviews, generally speaking, are meant when there are criminal charges that could potentially be on the table, or at least an investigation is ongoing or could be ongoing. Or, actually could be an and or, but there's concerns about a person's propensity to tell the truth. So there's some question as to whether they're making inconsistent statements or false statements. And if that was the case, then Garrity can be given to make it perfectly clear that there is an obligation on the employee's part to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, kind of an idea. And so Garrity provides protections to an employee, like in your spot, having to do with potential criminal investigation. Doesn't say crimes can't be brought if Garrity is given, but instead is saying anything that we were to talk about here cannot be shared with criminal investigators. Well, there's already been a criminal investigation conducted. We know there's no crimes that are going to come of that. And so at least that piece is not on the table, and so we won't do it. If we were concerned about your ability to tell the truth, or we questioned any of those things, then we would also consider giving Garrity. We're not in that boat. So you're not in trouble.
Rigby assures McTaggart that he isn't in trouble, which is odd because McTaggart is the one calling out an issue, and he knows he is not the subject of the investigation.
I don't anticipate anything here causing you some kind of a disciplinary. I know lots of times officers get concerned about the consequences of what they say, meaning how that affects them with their coworkers. And I do get that, kind of the informal kind of between officers, crews, supervisors. Are they going to be upset with me? Any of those kinds of things. So it's not a criminal investigation. It's not a Garrity interview. At least at this point, we have no reason to do that. With that said, there's always the expectation when you're...
Check this out. I'm going to show you how I afforded this car. Okay, you ready? All right, 100.
When an employee is meeting with their employer, or here we are in place of your employer, to tell the truth and the whole truth and not exaggerate and not leave anything out and not embellish anything. So we don't need Garrity for that. An employee can be disciplined just because they're not telling the truth, and it can be corroborated other ways without Garrity. Another piece to all of that is that if we felt like we needed to stop the interview, do a Garrity interview, we'd do that. We'd stop. We'd just restart.
Yeah, for everybody just getting on the stream, right now we're looking at the full interrogation. Sheriff allegedly tries to intimidate cop after reporting police chief. And that's what we're looking at right now.
And we give Garrity admonitions. Hey, these are the warnings and admonitions. These are your rights under it as well. Do you have any questions so far?
I'm sure they'll be answered.
So we don't want you to question the credibility or the authenticity of us talking to you. So if you want to be calling Jim Moore at this point in time to make sure that all this is really legit and that we're asking questions on behalf of Heber City Police Department, we can do that.
That's not necessary.
So really the interview is meant to kind of have an introduction, get it out on the table, and then for us to ask some questions that are pretty specific. So we've already seen the body cam that people have. We've seen the reports, also the DPS interviews. So all that's in our minds. So lots of times in an interview we'll say, so start from the beginning and tell us about this thing. And that's just not where we're at with this at this point in time. It's just kind of a waste of your time. And so we're just going to start into some questions that are really kind of having to do with one part of the overall incident.
Rigby should be trying to get as much information as possible instead of cutting out large portions of the story. This is especially true, given that he is friends with the accused and should not be in charge of the investigation at all. I recently released another highly intense video on my Patreon, an explosive altercation between two cops, where tension escalated so quickly, resulting in a drawn gun and a devastating gunshot. In a mere 26 seconds, witness the events unfold as two officers engage in a fight that turns deadly. Watch this video and more at patreon.com/strangerstoriesplus.
And it's not even anything having to do with being in the house and being with Jesse James Rodriguez and moving on to the gurney and then going to the cage and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think you need to feel like we don't have that as the basis, because we've been over all of that. And if we were to just go over it here, it just is kind of needless, because we're really focused on the questions that we have, and we just don't want to waste your time having you think, is it having to do with all this kind of stuff? It's like, we can tell where there's policy concerns in these areas. Okay. Any questions so far?
We don't want to take time out of your CIT training, so that's why we're going to cut straight to the meat of the subject. It's very kind of you. Why? You're welcome. Very welcome.
All right. So when it comes to how all of the concern came about, our concern has to do with inconsistent and false statements, not on your part. And so the first question really that we have is, we know that you're the FTO to Adrian Gondaria on this call, March 31st, 2021, right?
Mm-hmm.
Liberty Station, Jesse Rodriguez. And then from there end up being concerns in the police department about how it was handled, specifically whether there was excessive use of force, and even more specific, whether Dave Booth used any excessive use of force. So what do you know, or what was your involvement in after March 31st and that incident, and then discussion with others? I'm leaving the others open at this point in time. We can narrow down more on officers, supervisors, spouse, people outside the office, but all of that's on the table right now. What was your discussion about the incident with others, generally speaking?
It's been a while, so I don't 100% recall timing on everything or anything like that, but I know I discussed with, I think, 3 other officers. And I discussed with a supervisor.
Okay, is the supervisor one of the 3 officers or separate?
Separate.
Okay, can you tell us more about that, the officers and the supervisor?
What are you looking for?
Names, times, what's best to your recollection?
I believe I talked about it with Rojo, Richard, and I actually want to say Weischer, but that was kind of random because he was just in the office randomly. And that would have been, like I said, I don't remember time frames, but it would have been shortly after the incident, like within a couple days.
So accurate to say shortly after incident, within a couple days. Okay. And the supervisor?
Jarvie.
Okay, and what were the circumstances there?
My discussion with my supervisor?
Uh-huh.
I was doing what I was obligated to do by policy based on what I had seen.
So help us understand the circumstances of how that conversation happened. So where were you, kind of the time frame that it happened?
In his office. Time frame still shortly after, but it was after I spoke to the other officers. So within days.
McTaggart was shocked over what he had seen and wanted to ensure he wasn't misinterpreting what had happened.
Shortly after the incident, within days after the incident, but also it's after you spoke with these 3.
That's how I recall it. It was after that I would have talked to them. It was time for me to look into what I felt like I needed to do.
Okay. Okay. And so, is this on were you both working?
I think so. I don't see why I would have been in there otherwise.
So we won't be strong there, but you think you were both working.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it was just him and I on a crew at that point. So
who was on your crew at that time?
Well, I was FTOing Adrian. So it's just me. It was just me and Jarvie, and then I was training Adrian.
So just the 3 of you on that crew, on Jarvie's crew?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So at that point, you're the only 2 on the crew, and he is your crew supervisor.
Yes.
Okay. And this happened in Sergeant Jarvie's office. It's a day crew, is a day shift or a night shift?
I don't remember. I could look back. That's right around shift change time. So we started in January on days. It would have been 3 months, so right around the end of March, beginning of April would have been the switch. So I don't remember.
So you think this was within a few days of March 31st. But we also want to be careful not to make it too much. So fairness wise, you think it was for sure within a week? You think it for sure was within 2 weeks? Like maybe 3 weeks?
I mean, I think within a week. It's hard for me to say for sure because it's been a long time, but
pretty confident?
Yes, because I was, it wasn't anything that I sat on for any period of time. It happened. I did my research, talked about it a little bit, and, determined what I thought I needed to do with it and did that.
Okay. Pretty confident the conversation with Jarvie occurred within 1 week of March 31st. Okay. Okay. How long was the conversation?
Couldn't tell you. I mean, it was not super brief. I mean, we sat and chatted for a while, but I don't even know that it was all entirely just on that subject.
Others present besides the two of you?
No. Adrian may have been out doing paperwork in the office while the door was closed.
Okay.
Door
was closed.
If he was in the office, the door would have been closed. It wasn't a conversation I would have had for other people to hear.
Did you consider it a formal conversation?
Yes.
And why would you consider a formal conversation?
Well,
kind of the outward, or what was said?
Not necessarily a formal conversation where it's with my supervisor who I can talk with comfortably. This is more of a formal conversation than that, but formal because it was me doing what I had determined I was required to do by policy, and I made that clear in the conversation. I did my research. I looked into law and policy, and I determined I was required by Heber City policy to report what I had seen to my supervisor. And so I made it clear this is me reporting it to my supervisor.
Okay.
And he was clear on that also.
Okay.
During this conversation, when you spoke with Sergeant Jarvie, was this the first, from your understanding, was this the first that he had heard of this?
From my understanding, yes.
Okay. And the way he acted, from his reaction, from you telling him about this incident, it was the first time he had heard about it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Not about the entire incident, obviously.
No,
or the entire
not
call,
about the entire incident, but from what you were bringing forward to him.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So what were the concerns that you raised?
That I observed an officer use excessive force. Or what I perceived to be excessive force from where I saw it happen.
Okay. And so you're concerned about Dave Booth using excessive force?
Correct.
And you communicated that to Sergeant Jarvie?
I did.
At what point do you think that Dave Booth used excessive force?
When he put his hand on Jesse's neck and squeezed his neck to put him into the back of, I believe it was Adrian's car, but that patrol car.
So, to say it accurately, when recovered, he knew that the recording was going. Okay. When he put his hand on Jesse's neck and squeezed, is that accurate?
Yes.
And put him inside the car. Is that fair to inaccurate to say it that way?
Yes.
Put him inside the patrol vehicle. Okay. Were there any other concerns that you had about excessive use of force?
No.
Anything else? Any other concerns that you raised at the time with Sergeant Jarvie having to do with the incident?
Only how to deal with that. Excuse me, how to have that conversation with somebody that I was training to be a new officer who I thought witnessed it, because it was just the three of us there. Everybody else was kind of milling around scene. As you know, there was a lot of people on scene at that point, just the way the previous use of force with Jesse had gone down and the emergency button and everything. But to my recollection and my perception was at that moment, it was Jesse, Chief, Adrian, and me, and kind of our own little world. And And so that was, I mean, honestly, that was the most upsetting thing to me about it at the time, was that I was going to have to reconcile that with somebody who I was trying to teach how to be a cop.
So most upsetting, since you were the FTO and you were training a new officer, and it was your job to reconcile. What do you mean when you say reconcile?
I just didn't know how to approach it with him. Do I, obviously a difficult situation where it's chief. If it was another line level officer, yeah, like, hey, this is cut and dry. What you saw happen there was wrong and not the way we do things, and that'll be dealt with, but you don't need to worry about that. But we need to have that conversation. That's just a little bit more of a difficult conversation. So with somebody who's, I mean, it was a difficult situation for me to be in, and I'm experienced, and I have no issue being on a scene with chief and, and all of that stuff. And then imagine that from a brand new guy still in training, who turns out was having a very hard time in training.
Yeah. So what makes you think, though, that
Rigby begins to gaslight McTaggart by implying that what he perceived isn't actually what happened. Before we move forward, I want to extend my thanks for watching. This video today has no sponsor, so if you're enjoying it, subscribing helps the channel grow. You can also check out my second channel, Stranger Crimes, after this video.
the way you perceive it is the way that it is? So what I mean by that is you're seeing excessive use of force. That's not your decision. That is a determination that the department will make. Sure. And so I like and I appreciate and I respect you going through the process. Hey, I have a concern. You raise it to your sergeant. That's the right thing to do. And maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying here, but the way that it's coming across to me, at least at this point, is that you're feeling like you have to explain to the new employee that the chief just used excessive use of force, and now we got to work through that. Am I misunderstanding that?
You're not. The way that I perceived that, it was pretty cut and dry from what I perceived. I was right there with it, and I didn't see anything, especially with, we've just been told chokeholds are against policy and all, George Floyd and everything else, and people going to prison and all of this stuff. And then we see that happen, and that was very clear to me that that was inappropriate. So in one way or the other, maybe not. And maybe this is what you're getting at. I'm not saying that, yeah, he committed a crime at that point.
What's a chokehold mean?
Anything applying pressure to the neck. I mean, they're saying George Floyd, they're relating that to a chokehold, and he had a knee on the back of his neck, and you can't stop breathing from the back of the neck.
So
I mean, what?
Is that what your policy talks about with chokehold? Is anything that applies pressure to the neck?
I don't know, honestly. I don't know off the top of my head right now. But and to back up, that wasn't anything on the back of the neck. I mean, I watched his hands squeeze around the front of his neck.
How long do you think that lasted for?
I have thought about that because my other concern when I researched what my obligation was is, coming across the duty to intervene. And so I had a second to myself to, should I have stepped in and grabbed Chief's arm and said, hey, quit? I think by time everything processed what was happening, it was done. So I think, and I never saw the video, so I never saw it besides in that moment. But
So this is just your recollection from your eyewitness account. You've never reviewed or watched a video since that? Not of that part, no. Okay.
I've seen video of us fighting with Jesse, but no, not of that part.
Okay.
But and I'm sorry, maybe I was in the middle of the statement.
So overall, I think whether it's now or sometime in our interview here, I think it's good and it's fine to be talking about whether there's excessive use of force. And and chokehold and applying pressure and all those kinds of things. So I think that's good. I think that's healthy. We are here representing your department and also their views when it comes to their policy. I mean, that's what we're doing. We're doing an IA, so it's built on policy. And I'm sure there'll be things to come as far as training. But the bottom line is for right now, is it accurate for us to say that at least at that point in time, you felt like you were going to have to reconcile this with the new officer and saying that what the chief's doing there, you can't do that?
Yeah, that was a concern.
Okay. All right, so
and maybe I should say that was a concern of whether I should do that specifically with him or not, or how to approach that was my biggest concern, is how to deal with that as his trainer.
Okay. And so being the representative of the police department at this point in time, I guess the communication is that takes at least part of that off of your shoulders is really it's a determination that the process needs to follow, right? So if through the process it was determined that it's excessive use of force, then you're going to be in that boat.
I understand that, but that's also not valid, because if the law is going to sit and say that an officer is legally required to intervene when there's excessive force being used, that's an in the moment thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do I intervene on something that has to be determined by this later process?
But you didn't intervene.
No, I didn't.
So you don't need to get with the officer. If you didn't intervene, then why would you need to get with the officer and tell him?
Because the reason I didn't intervene is because there was not time for me to intervene, because it was done.
Okay, so
what was my perspective of it? And like I said, I had that thought afterwards: should I have intervened? And I realized, this is something that happened so quickly that by the time I processed everything, it wasn't something. If that had gone on, it would have been something for me to have intervened.
Did you end up having a conversation with Adrian about
it? A very non-specific conversation.
Okay. Help us understand. So you're concerned about the spot it puts you in, because you're going to have to reconcile this with the officer, but you didn't reconcile it with the officer.
Well, that was my concern immediately. Did Adrian see what I saw? Is he processing what I'm processing? Which
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
His perspective, is it the same or different?
Yeah, I to this day do not know. In that conversation with Jarvie that I had, I also had this conversation about how to approach it with Adrian. And, we kind of determined it was best to have a more.
Why did no one tell Florida drivers about this new rule? If you are currently insured, drive less than.
Broad conversation of there's kind of an old way of doing things and a new way of doing things, and we can't do things like they used to do things, and kind of just one of those conversations. I never specifically sat him down and said, did you see Chief do this? Or I saw Chief do this, and don't do that. And that it was never specifically discussed with Adrian like that.
So did Adrian ever bring up the issue of any type of misdoing by anyone during the time that Jesse was put into the car?
No.
So he never did come to you and say, listen, I'm concerned, or during this conversation that you had of old school, new school?
This answer does not work in McTaggart's favor, since it sounds like he may have been the only one who thought both used excessive force.
There was nothing brought up by Adrian as far as any concerns.
No, but he wasn't really one to bring stuff up. He was kind of just doing this for the whole time.
Okay.
Through FTO, I mean.
No, I get you.
His part of FTO.
Okay.
All right. So
and maybe I'm not I don't know, maybe I'm not communicating it well. I take pride in training new officers in that position and the importance of that position. And so that, I guess that was me having Adrian there was just something else onto that issue. That issue would have been that issue with just me there. And I saw what I saw independent of Adrian. And then on top of all of that, on what I was, figuring out what I needed to do, what our policy said, what the law said, I had the thought, Adrian was there too and was in a position where he could have saw exactly what I saw. So how, do I need to have that conversation with him, and how specifically do I need to have that conversation with him?
So when did you have the conversation with Adrian?
Either that day that I talked to Jarvie or within the next shift or two, quickly after.
Within day or two of speaking with Jarvie. And so you'd said above that you're pretty confident that you met with Jarvie within a few days, for sure a week, of March 31st. So this is still kind of within the first week or two. Would that be accurate to say?
Mm-hmm.
So within 2 weeks after March 31st. Okay. Where did the conversation with Adrian happen?
I don't remember. Either in a patrol car or in our office.
And was it more of a kind of a formal conversation where it's just kind of you and him? It's not like at break and then it kind of comes up, or help us understand this.
It was just me and him, but it's, one of those FTO conversations that we have all the time.
Yeah, could be anywhere.
So, we were having those conversations consistently. So I'm sure it wasn't anything. It was just another learning moment from his perspective.
Well, and when you were doing it, were you talking specifically about the March 31st Jesse James Rodriguez incident?
I'm sure I was. I don't remember the exact conversation I had with Adrian, but we did have a lot of conversation about that just because he was involved in a use of force with Jesse. And so there was a lot. And if I remember right, that was like his first day of FTO. So there was a lot of conversation surrounding all of that incident that had taken place and took place for a while.
So were there any other parts of that incident that you considered to be old school versus there's a different way of doing it now?
No.
So just that piece. Dave Booth, his hand on Jesse's neck, squeezing.
The old school thing is just kind of how I came up with to maybe have that conversation. That's excessive force isn't old school. It happens. So I don't know. I don't want to label it as.
Most people my age are slowing down, but I'm more active than ever. Hi, my name's Dr. Frank Schallenberg.
That was being old school. I'm sure that happens, in policing right now. So
overall, I guess my point, just to be clear about it, is on behalf of the police department, they don't see that as a conversation for an FTO to have with their new officer and making a determination that wasn't the way to do it. That can work for other things, but not for something like this. Because if you're going to go and talk with your sergeant because you're getting it off your shoulders, this is something that's important.
Rigby is wrong. It is McTaggart's job to point out any action that goes against policy to the officer he is training. Otherwise, he sets a precedent for not speaking out.
And policy requires that I go and do this. And there's a process for figuring that out.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't sit with an officer, and it doesn't sit with a sergeant, and it goes up like it did.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately it goes to the chief's supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a criminal investigation on it, and then the decision on that. And then there's an IA that's done on it, and then there's a decision on that. And what has been done, or at least it somewhat looks like it's been done, is, well, Adrian's already been told that that was not the way to be doing it. Although it wasn't specific, it was just generalized that that wasn't the way to be doing things. So I don't know if that's, if you agree with it, but that is the police department's view on that issue. And so from here, you could probably have more conversation with supervisors and hear it straight from them. And be like, oh, okay, I guess maybe next time I should do it differently, or maybe they want me to tweak it just some, and maybe I can keep part of what I did. Any questions about that? It's not that you have to agree. It's just the way that it is.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I guess questions on where that's coming from, because I feel like you're obviously already prepared with that information you just gave me, right?
What's that?
That whole speech just barely that you just gave me about how I handled it and that my department thinks it's wrong. I mean, I'm assuming that sounds like it was something that came from you before the conversation that we just had.
No, that is me hearing this for the first time.
Okay.
And applying what I know.
Okay.
And then me going back to them and saying, this is the statement I made on your behalf.
Okay.
That's what it is. And then they'll honor it.
Sure.
Because that's what we're doing here, is that we're doing this on their behalf. So.
Well, then maybe it needs to be more clear that I in no way threw Chief under the bus to Adrian. I mean, that was why I made it a point to do that, is that was me trying to have a conversation on, I guess, appropriate use of force or whatever that may be, without throwing Chief under the bus, knowing,
okay,
having seen what I'd seen.
Okay.
I had zero intent, and I don't believe that I did. Obviously, that's up to Adrian's perspective of the conversation that I had with him, so I can't speak for that. But I had absolutely no intent to
You're trying to be careful with that part.
Yeah, that's why it was difficult. It was a hard.
But still trying to do this conversation and talk and teach and mentor and move forward.
Right.
Okay, got it. I'll make sure that part's in there. So you didn't mention the Chief at all, because you said you didn't get specific?
I don't know whether I mentioned Chief, or if I did mention Chief, I didn't mention Chief, hey, he did something wrong. I definitely didn't ever bring up anything like this. It was a broad general conversation of there's a correct way to do things. So I don't know if I brought up Chief or not. I don't want to.
Anything more on that point?
No, not on that point.
Okay. All right, I think I got that. And in the report that I do, I'll make sure that I include this part that you did not intend to throw the Chief under the bus with Adrian on that part. Good. All right. What's the next piece, Brian?
I want to kind of loop back to your conversation with Jarvie. How many times did you and Sergeant Jarvie discuss this incident or this concern that I guess you had? You mentioned the one time in his office. Was there other times?
Like up to this point?
Yeah.
Or
sure.
It's come up again, yeah. So that happened. Thanks. That happened when it happened, and then to my recollection, it didn't come up for a long time again until I was given a heads up, hey, this investigation's happening.
So just your initial meeting with him in the office, and then nothing for a considerable amount of time until you heard that, okay, yeah, something's going to come of this.
Right. I mean, I think it was July when Chief went on leave, wasn't it? Or late June or July.
Somewhere about that. So there was no more conversation, just that one time. You didn't have any other conversations at the office, out on the street, during a break, anything like that?
Not that I remember, no, because I remember when it came back up, I had almost kind of like, I thought that was dead in the water, and because of the time between when I initially talked to him, when he was giving me the heads up, hey, this is happening.
Even after McTaggart expressed his concerns, the department dragged its feet so long that he thought the incident would be ignored.
Okay.
So I don't believe there was any more conversation about it.
Okay. So you kind of thought that the whole thing had just kind of gone away, and it was kind of a surprise when it kind of come back around?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So when you sat with Sergeant Jarvie in his office, shared your concern, because this is what, then what was your understanding of what was going to happen from there?
There was no expectation of anything else to happen.
Okay. So
My
he didn't say,
understanding
well,
of
I'll
my
go and do this or that or anything like that.
He definitely gave no statement of this is going to happen next. There was also no statement of, nothing's going to happen with this. So I don't know if, I'm assuming it was like, okay, thanks, I'll look into it kind of thing. There was definitely no promise of action. I remember that much. So.
And from you, was there any statement as far as like, this has got to be fill in the blank? I don't know what it would be, but was there an expectation on your part?
No.
It's like,
no.
that it be handled a certain way, or?
No, I made it clear from the beginning that I was doing what I felt like I was obligated to do. And that was where that's why I was having that conversation, because policy said that. And so I was fulfilling policy. Policy said, report it to the supervisor. So I made that clear. This is me reporting it to you. I'm done with it.
Okay. So in the interview with DPS, and I don't have anything against you, I don't, but there's this one part in the interview with DPS that confuses me. So you end up saying they ask you a few times about your concerns and whether you felt like there was excessive use of force. And you said that you were concerned, but based on your perspective of where you were, because you were back and not up right front, you didn't see anything that led up to that choking, however it's characterized. And so it might have been justified. You just didn't see that. You just saw Dave Booth's hand on Rodriguez's neck.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if
I remember that. I remember saying that. Yeah.
I don't want to get that part wrong. So to me, and here's the issue that I have, is that you're trying to say it on both sides, fence it. Say, I was concerned, but really I had no reason to be concerned because I didn't see the full thing of what happened.
I disagree with that. I think that
help us understand.
I was making it clear that
the average person sees around 10,000 online ads daily. Here's how a man's life would change if he used Pi. Day 1.
Based on what I saw, from my perspective, I observed excessive force. I was also recognizing that excessive force is not determined by my perspective. That's what it was. It's as simple as that. I was, especially where that was a criminal investigation. So I'm not going to sit there, obviously I'm going to be honest, and this is what I saw, and I explained what I saw. And so I made that statement to acknowledge that knowing what I saw is this perspective. And so maybe I'll clarify to you then. I do not believe that there was anything that warranted that. But I also acknowledge that it is a possibility that something could have happened that I didn't see. That's a possibility.
So you don't believe, help me understand that it warranted that. What's that?
What Chief did, what I saw.
You don't believe there was anything.
Any type of neck hold goes against department policy, so there is nothing the suspect could have done to warrant such treatment.
That warranted Booth taking his hand and putting it on.
So I didn't directly observe anything that warranted it. So I can definitely say that because that's my observations, right? And from where I was, which was close, it was, behind Adrian, but still close. I don't really, there's no way that it didn't seem likely to me that something would have warranted it. I'm just acknowledging that I'm not, all seeing and all knowing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he basically saying, I didn't see what would cause him to be choking this person. I didn't see what would make him decide to choke this person. That's it.
Okay, so that does help us because now we know clearly that you think that Dave Booth used excessive use of force.
Yeah, and if I didn't, it would have just died.
At the same time, you're trying to acknowledge the fact that this is one perspective and there could be other perspectives.
Right.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's talk for a minute then about the perspective. So I don't expect you to agree with it. In people's situations like this, I would expect them to do a counter to the whole thing and come up with the reasons why it's not that. But the bottom line is that for both the criminal and the administrative review, there is no excessive use of force.
Rigby tells McTaggart that his perception is wrong and comes across as angry that McTaggart would make this accusation. His attitude is discouraging and indicates that it is not safe for an officer to address questionable behavior.
And so your perception is wrong. And so you'll just have to figure out how best to go about it.
Yeah, I had to think about it. This is an interrogation. And saying, your thoughts about this is wrong. What?
About that from here on out. I could go into more detail about why that is.
Go ahead.
I don't want to kind of.
That's what I was. Go ahead. Would have been my response to him saying that.
Belabor the point when the main thing is knowing that that's just not. You and anyone else that thinks that that's how it is, that might have been your perspective at the time, but it's been found to be false. So there was no excessive use of force. So I don't know if it helps you at this point in time to have me explain why that. Sure. Okay. So the overall thing, and you'd have to go through policy. So we could sum here, but I don't want to take all your time. You only have 2 hours. If you want me to go through policy, I will. But the bottom line is that in policy there's formal complaints and there's informal complaints. Also, when it comes to, and each one you're supposed to follow a certain way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're coming to your sergeant and doing a formal complaint, there's certain things that are supposed to happen. So it says in policy that you're supposed to come immediately. And so I don't know that you coming within a few days is immediate, but I think it's pretty close. I don't have a problem with that.
And I was going to say, is enough time for me to read the policy and figure out what I'm supposed to do and then do it,
I think
considered immediately?
Yes.
I mean, I felt like I was
doing the best you can.
Yeah.
So that's one issue. It's got to be written. So you've got to do a written statement on what your concern is.
So I guess let me ask this. That's obviously in a separate policy.
From what?
For the process to file a complaint, right? Is that the policy that you're
separate from use of force in two different places, you mean?
Well, because the policy that I came across was policy that I was doing what I was doing, and hopefully you have it, you probably have it, is.
So there's use of force.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was doing right there, is that orange paragraph. That's what I was doing. It says report. So I wasn't filing a formal complaint on chief. That's not what I was doing. I was satisfying that highlighted part right there. And I didn't even read the formal complaint policy because that's not what I was doing.
Okay. Well, and we're not here trying to point fingers on, oh, well, you're supposed to look at this one also. But the bottom line is, I mean, all policy is together, whether you know about it or not. And so, yeah, you'd want to go to the complaint piece. Most of the policy is focusing on when citizens want to make a complaint on an officer. But there are parts in there that help someone in your situation know how to go about this. And so, no, I don't feel like we're here trying to make a deal of that. You just need to know that there's an immediate requirement and that there's a documentation requirement, and anything that evidence-wise that exists, to take it and to do what you can. I know in this situation that there's questions having to do with the video and whether it's accessible or not. So we're not here trying to get in the middle of that stuff. But overall, that is what you're trying to do. You're not trying to be, as an officer or as an FTO officer or as a sergeant, you're not trying to do an investigation that so-and-so just brought you, then pass it on. So you're informing the proper supervisors, you're finding out what they want to have happen. And from there, then they get the right people involved that they want to have involved.
Yeah.
So just don't want anyone thinking, and again, this is something that you can take to the bank. It's not just what I think or how we run things here in the sheriff's office or something like that. I'm speaking for the police department when I say that when there is a concern that someone raises, or a complaint, you can use them interchangeably, that someone raises, it immediately needs to go to the proper supervisor. And it's got to be documented. So citizens sometimes don't want to document. They think that they can be anonymous. Officers don't get to be anonymous. So
There's more gaslighting, as Rigby implies that McTaggart didn't follow the correct procedure.
they work for an employer. If they have a concern about how something was done, then they have a duty to report it.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that duty is to document it.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got to do it. It's just part of the rules.
Good.
Okay, more on the excessive use of force piece. So in this situation, it's not what Dave Booth did is not even use of force. Now, people might disagree with that, but in policy, it's saying here, the application of physical technique or tactic. So it's like, okay, so what did Dave do? I think that what's an issue is with his right hand, he took it and put it on Rodriguez's neck and squeezed. I don't know if there's a dispute on what that technique or tactic is. Okay. Technique or tactic. So were we taught to do that somehow in any of our trainings? Grab someone by the throat and do that kind of a thing? So the application of physical technique or tactic, chemical agent, or a weapon to another person. It's not a use of force when a person allows himself or herself to be searched, escorted, or handcuffed. So by the definition, if you're not taught the technique or tactic, it's not a use of force. Now, there can be some disagreement on whether that.
Y'all, I know y'all following this. Do y'all follow what he just said? Because it makes absolutely no sense.
Policy is right or not, or whether it ought to include some more things.
Okay, so I mean, the statement you just made, if I punch somebody in the throat, but I've never been taught to do that, then that's not a use of force.
How old is this girl? This girl. This girl is 45. So yes.
Is that
so? In your training,
maybe I'm misunderstanding you because your statement sounds ridiculous to me.
In your trainings, you've never been taught to punch someone?
Not in the throat, no. Like, we've been taught to grab people, but we've never been taught to grab people by the throat. So, I mean, it's what it.
Yeah, right.
How specific are you going to be on it?
That's my point, is that you've never been taught to grab someone by the throat. So you have to take.
We've been taught specifically to not grab people by the throat.
No, I disagree. You've been taught to not do a chokehold.
Okay.
And then when it comes down to what a chokehold is, it comes down to blood flow or airflow. So then what you end up looking at is whether
Rigby tries to convince McTaggart that he misunderstood the training. By now, McTaggart has realized that Rigby is not taking this investigation seriously.
the circumstances that surround that issue. So a chokehold is more one of these things.
Yeah. Well, I don't want it to appear that I'm trying to argue to the point that I think Chief is guilty of something. Because I did not ever want to be in this situation in the first place, and I'm not the one trying to say he needs to whatever. Like, I don't like this situation, and I don't like that I'm in it. It's scrappy. But I thought a lot about it, and I made a very informed decision, and I'm a very experienced officer, and I read case law, and I read lawsuits, and I know what is appropriate use of force, or my perspective of what appropriate use of force is. Obviously, I'm not the one who determines it, and it was determined that it wasn't. And I understand all of that. But what you're saying is not changing my perspective of what I saw. Nothing's going to change that. That's why we're here, right?
Yeah. Well,
because
Lucas, it really comes down to the future, your future in the police department.
Sure.
So you can dig in your heels and say,
and that's not what I'm doing.
This is how I feel, and no one's going to change. And okay, that's your decision. You just won't get any trusted positions having to do with DT and use of force and sergeant and those kinds of things because you're not willing to learn and be open-minded to it.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to help you understand that Lexipol and the attorneys that wrote it, the prosecutors that reviewed the criminal case and fit it within the statute and how it fits into the policy. And then us going through this as well. Everyone's saying what happened there is not a use of force. And so the reason is because of the circumstances that surround it all. Yes, it's not a technique or tactic, but that's only one part. The other pieces have to do with it was incidental. So I don't know if anyone had a chance. I'll just speak about you specifically. You didn't look at the camera pieces. I'm not saying that you needed to, but when you look at the recordings of what happened and you go frame by frame, you have Jesse James Rodriguez who actually sits down in the vehicle. They're moving him. He's going back and forth at points. He is compliant. He's not. He wants to go a different direction. It's a gradient level of compliance. It's not like you're all 100% compliant or 100% not compliant.
Right.
It's this kind of level of how that works. So point is, Jesse James Rodriguez goes and sits in the vehicle. They get him in the vehicle. Now he decides he wants to come out. So now he's being some level of non-compliant. So he's coming out, he's leading with his head, and he and Dave Booth are now like this. And whether he doesn't make statements about kissing you until later, but at this point in time, he's known to be a spitter. Dave Booth is wondering whether he's going to bite him. Dave Booth takes him and pushes him, and it hits him higher, somewhere in through here, and pushes him back in, separating space. And then from there, Rodriguez comes out again. And that's when Dave Booth's hand catches him here, and he's pushing him back in. Now, when I say incidental, this is one frame. You can go frame, frame by frame. Here, his hand isn't there. Here, his hand is there. Here, his hand isn't there. And so you have to figure out the timing of that video. But this is something like 1 to 2 seconds.
I was gonna say, what is the time? So 1 to 2.
Yeah, it's 1 to 2 seconds. And even
like I said, my guess was under 5, but yeah.
Yeah, you said that with UPS. So it's this incidental kind of a thing. Then Jesse James Rodriguez, he's coming back out of the vehicle a third time. And this is when Adrian and others are all now trying to help with the whole situation. And Adrian's grabbing him by the feet, and they actually get him in there, and the door shuts.
The more Rigby tries to diminish what happened, the more it sounds like he is covering up for his friend Booth.
And so when I say incidental, it's like the first time, that's not what Dave Booth was doing.
Right.
The second time, that's what happened. And the third time, that's not what was doing either, because now it's down lower. And so none of us knows for sure, did Dave intentionally on that go around grab him by the throat? That's what he was after, and put him in there.
Right.
But you end up having to look at the overall thing and say, well, he didn't do it the first time, and he didn't do it the third time. And you also have this arrestee, and he's in cuffs, and that's an important piece to make. Some people are using that to say, therefore, he shouldn't have had someone put his hand on his throat. But the point is he's fighting, he's resisting, and he's continuing to come out and out and out. Dave Booth is, whether people agree with it or not, the final decision is Dave Booth is doing the best he can to get this guy in there. And this whole thing was unintended. It was unintentional. It was incidental. It was inconsequential because there's no loss of anything. You don't see anything happening with all of that. So in the future, if we can go there for a second, in the future, the issue really comes down to not whether someone's hand was on someone's throat. It has to do with, was it intentional? Was it a tactic? Was it a technique that's being used against another? Here, we're not even technically affecting an arrest. I mean, overall, you could say that's what they're doing, but they're really not. They already arrested him.
Right.
What they're doing now is they're escorting or transporting, and that's in policy. And so it's not so much use of force to make an arrest, although there's an argument that the whole thing, from the time you take him from the house to the time you get him to the jail, is arrest. I acknowledge that. But policy gets even more specific. And when it starts talking about escorting and transporting, then it's like, well, it seems like the policy distinguishes between arrest.
Now, this is wild. This is supposed to be an interrogation. And right now, what he's doing is basically trying to cover up for the chief, I guess. When you have an officer there telling you what happened, they're supposed to be questioning him about what happened, and he's trying to give his own thoughts on the situation when that's not what interrogation is.
escort transport. And so the bottom line here, the decision here is it doesn't even rise to the level of use of force because it doesn't meet the definition. Maybe it needs to be changed. Heber City ought to go through that.
Get out of here.
If they think that it does. But by circumstances, it also does not. It's not a technique. It was only incidental. It was only used for 1 or 2 seconds. It was only one frame on a video, things like that. And the courts and the attorneys and admin, they want to give cops the benefit of the doubt. Because when you're in it with someone and all of a sudden my forearm hit him in the neck and now and it could have cut off some airway for some amount of time.
Right.
So it is concerning when you do see an officer's hand on someone's throat and that it's gripped. I'd say that it's like, man, that's concern.
That was my concern.
That's the concern. It's just once you, and it's kind of like pulling a trigger and then it's all second guessed forevermore. So once you actually go through the process and it ends up being, this isn't one. That wouldn't be concerned about it because it's this, but in the end, it's not. Okay, where do we need to go next?
I just want to mention one thing is I've known you for a long time, Lucas, and you're very confident and I trust you. You know, if I have to go into a building, I want you on my back. And I think it's awesome that you researched, you took your time and you researched, but you didn't go that extra step. I think if you would have went that extra step, watched the video, I think your mind would be changed on this. Definitely. I really do. So maybe in the future, take it one more step.
So was that video even mine to watch? Was that my body cam that showed that, or was it the cage cam in Adrian's car? This obviously doesn't matter. I'm just curious.
So what's wild is they're saying he should watch the footage, but he was actually there and saw it with his own eyes and has his own body cam that he can watch or that he has access to. This is crazy that they're conspiring for something that they know is wrong. They know he shouldn't have choked that man. And they won't. And they're mad at him for speaking up about it. And they're like questioning him about speaking up for a man being choked out for no reason.
So it's not Adrian's because his fell off, right?
Right. His body camera fell off. Then there would have been one in the vehicle, then my camera.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the one that's in the vehicle.
Okay.
So overall, and I agree with what Brian's saying, another piece you have to read into that though, another piece of policy you have to read into that, is that there's no requirement to do that work before you go to your supervisor. So when you saw the concerning thing and
so wow,
it concerned you, it bugged you, that's the time to go and do it. Now, as all of this progresses, right, then that continued work to try to figure out where things are at, that helps.
Can you appreciate that this situation was changed by who it was? If this had been another officer, that probably, and I don't know because it wasn't, but that probably would have been the conversation immediately. It made things different because of who it was. It made things very serious immediately in my mind.
And I'm not
and
through.
That's why
I'm not through with the investigation, so I guess
McTaggart is correct that the investigation is being handled differently since it involves a higher-ranking officer. If anything, both should be held to a higher standard.
it's not fair for me to answer the question at this point in time, but I appreciate you raising the question with it, because
this is truly my like go-to number one beauty product at the moment. I wear this like no matter the time of the day, like this.
I think you have a valid point.
Sure. From the beginning of all of it, I was trying to do the right thing. That's what I always try to do. I don't think anybody can question my integrity in anything I've done in this job, and I stand by that. And I was extra trying to do the right thing because it was my chief.
And so what I still, the reservation, or me holding back just a little bit, is that to some extent, the more you trust someone, the less concerned you are with the issue.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. Some people might take what I just said and say, oh, so we should sweep that under the rug. You know, if you feel concerned about it, you should raise it. But to some extent, someone that has a lot of years experience, or that's their expertise, or blah, 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 you had a lot of experience with them. Yeah, it can be more. I mean, nobody wrote reports on this thing. Nobody went to the county attorneys on this thing. So there's just different indicators. That's like, when everyone was focusing on Richard Christ and Jesse James Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the issue that's where the use of force was.
Right.
Because that did involve technique and tactic.
Yeah.
So it's a good point. Anything else right now?
No.
So here we are. So one thing that we're going to need from you is a written statement on your feelings about this excessive use of force. So we're not asking you to agree with us.
Mm-hmm.
We're asking you to put yourself back in the spot of when this happened. And that's what we need to do, is to document this thing. And so you had a concern. And when you go and raise it with Jason Jarvie, and then a report being done, hey, on this day or time, or at least the best of your recollection, I went to Jason Jarvie. I spoke to him about these things. My concern is this. We don't want to, other people can try to make it that it's some other concern. So that's why this matters, is that's what your concern is. It's not any of these other things that people end up using for their own benefit. That's really the issue. It's like, what's your concern? You brought it up to your sergeant. So why did you go to him? Let's get it on paper. Some other things to know here. So our instruction to you is to not to talk to anyone about our conversation. Now, if you end up speaking with a spouse, it doesn't matter. But the concern is with other officers. Sometimes people want to have an attorney. Okay, I'm not saying you can't speak to an attorney, but I'm saying you're not supposed to go out and speak with friends or the media or, other officers, whether they're in your agency or not. If you needed to talk with someone because of the stress of all of it, you go and you talk.
It is an active investigation, and McTaggart knows he isn't allowed to discuss it outside of a few exceptions. Rigby makes it sound more like a warning.
That's the professional you talk to. You can talk to doctors, you can talk to attorneys, all of those things. It's just, oh, so I'm going to call a trusted source within law enforcement. No, you're not going to do that. At some point in time, all that's lifted. But at this point, we still have more people to interview. We don't want the information to be shared. I don't know if you feel best about writing this statement on an actual witness statement, or you're gonna write it out on a lined piece of paper, or what you're gonna do. But
either time, doesn't matter.
Okay, give me a sec while I go over.
So I guess I'm not fully, I mean, my statement's been clear from the beginning. So what's happening by me writing it down?
So that's what policy requires.
For what?
To document.
To document me filing a formal complaint, or
to document your concern. We have a recording, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got the DPS recording.
Yeah.
The thing about recordings is that people can end up saying that that was a question, and then it prompted a response. And so you got the response you wanted because you asked that question.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's more of a, we're controlling this conversation and you just have to submit to it. It's like, okay, I disagree, but all right. A statement is more, hey, you have a concern, right? You went to Jason Jarvie, you raised a concern.
Mm-hmm.
So on your own, when you write out what your concern is, now the department knows that that's how you feel. So in your case, it might be exactly the same as what you've stated here. But things have a way of changing over time when attorneys or others get involved. You're not in trouble here, even after some of the stuff that we talked about and explained. You're not in trouble. You don't need to expect disciplinaries from this. Now, when I say that, we are not the decision makers.
Right.
So we take what we found, we turn it over to the mayor, and the mayor.
This new rule every Florida driver should know.
If you are currently insured, drive less than 50 miles a day, and live in a qualified zip code, you can get an extremely high
manager, and they take it from there. But my feeling is that there's not disciplinaries that ought to be handed down. We went through some explanations, some what you might call counseling or something along those lines, some correction of, no, Lucas, we disagree with you. It's like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you were vocal, that's all wrong. They're completely wrong. This is how we're going to go ahead. You want to start training people that way. You want to start talking to people inside your crew that's when it's going to cause issues.
Mm-hmm.
The implication that McTaggart could receive disciplinary action if he doesn't agree with the outcome of the investigation is crossing a line.
But just because we have a conversation here about, hey, Lucas, that might have been your perception, but just so you know, this is the determination. You're going to have to wrap your mind around it, and then from here on out, move in that direction, at least if you're going to work for Heber.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's meant to be. So the written part is just meant to say what you say. We're not telling you what to say. But your concern was so such and such, and you went to Jason Jarvie, so at least that much ought to be in there, but then we're out of it.
Mm-hmm. You had a concern, we just want it written. What was your concern?
That's what your policy requires. And that's what we're doing here is a policy application, a policy review, an IA.
So can I ask, like, I realize you're telling me that I'm not in trouble, but you're not the one who gets me in trouble.
Yeah.
So I guess what is this? Like, what's the bigger picture of this? Because I felt like I did the right thing, and now I'm in way over my head.
Mm-hmm. So I don't think that you are. I know that that's how you feel. So I'll address.
I'm right here. I mean, here we are.
Yeah,
I'm
I
getting
get it.
pulled out of trainings for IAs. So
Yeah, I get it. So overall, yeah, you're in the middle of something that's not comfortable and you don't want to be. At the same time, this is one of the most difficult spots to be in law enforcement, because there's very few other places where you work and they really care about this. And then what happened, and then what happened, and okay, and so we want you to do this and that, and it's all recorded, and all this kind of, right? From many other employers, except for this industry, that really care about that stuff. Now, the bottom line is you're just going to have to trust. Maybe that's difficult to do, but that is what it comes down to. You're just going to have to trust that when we're saying, hey, policy requires this, you can go and look in policy and double check. But we're not asking you to do something that's not in policy.
sure. Well, I mean, I guess am I the subject of this IA?
No.
Okay. So somebody else, obviously an IA is on a person. I mean,
they can, right, they can all start, and it can be a generalized thing.
Right.
But I'm also not trying to.
and obviously you're not going to tell me more information than that, but okay. So I'm not the subject of this.
And
IA.
I'm not trying to pass this off as though this is just an IA and it could be anybody, anything. It is not generalized that way. No.
Okay.
But no, you're not the subject.
Okay.
The only way that you can get in trouble here is if you don't do what we ask you to do. So if we ask you a question and you don't want to give the answer, well, that hasn't happened here. That's going to cause you issues.
Yeah.
We ask a question, you give an answer, we find out different that that's not how it was, that's going to cause you issues. I don't think that's happened here.
And I like to understand things, so I'm asking questions. I'm not trying to do
And that's good.
anything. So.
Yep.
That's a good thing.
Yep, it really is. And then when it comes to any of these other follow-up things that we need, it's like, the speaking and not speaking to people, doing a statement or a report on the issue. Yeah, those are the follow-up things that we.
Okay. Do you need a statement right now, or you want me to do
What's
that
going to be
on my own
next
time?
time? Do you think?
Well, you've got a half hour before you leave. How long do you think it's going to take you to fill out a statement on this?
Not a half hour.
Not a half hour. Then let's just get it done and over with. Let's do it now. If that's okay with you.
Yeah, and to be clear, you want my written statement to be what my specific concern was that I brought forward to my supervisor.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep, put in the circumstances around there. I mean, but yeah.
Okay.
Simple as that.
It is a relief to McTaggart that the uncomfortable interview is over, although he may choose to consider his words carefully when he writes his statement.
I get a county statement.
Well, I mean, if you want to do it on a city statement, you can, but I just had that here in the office, so.
What's our policy say?
Statement.
I'm just kidding.
Statement. Written statement.
2103. I don't remember. I was
That's
gonna
fine.
see if I can
No,
remember it.
you're fine.
March 31st, correct?
Yes, it was. Yes.
If you or a loved one ever use Depo-Provera, listen up. New research suggests an increased risk of brain tumor.
Lucas, are you aware of anyone else that's concerned about excessive use of force in this incident? I should say in the police department. Did you ever speak with the mayor?
No.
Manager?
No.
Attorney?
Yeah. So this is wild. But what I'm gonna play as soon as this interrogation finishes is the actual footage of him choking this guy. So y'all will be able to see it and make your own decision.
So a couple things. One, so here's statute on an issue which I think helps you feel more comfortable on some stuff. So an employer may not take adverse action against an employee because the employee communicates in good faith. That's the main piece there. A violation of suspected violation of law. So you've done that and it's in good faith. How do we know that? An employee is presumed to have communicated in good faith if the employee gives written notice. To a person in authority over the person alleged. So, and then there's this piece of an employer may not take adverse action against an employee because an employee participates or gives information in an investigation. So by doing that piece and also by consenting to the interview as well, which I know it's required, but you get the good faith presumption. I think that's a great thing here.
Yep.
It shows everyone that you're just trying to do the best you can. You don't have anything against anyone. You're researching things. You're conscientious. You're wanting to help train employees. That's all you were doing. And I think we can say the same thing now. I don't feel any
I don't
different.
see a change. Not at all.
So this is the Utah Protection of Public Employees Act. So separate from policy, state law keeps police department, Heber City themselves, or any supervisor or administrator from trying to somehow retaliate or treat you different. And so I'll make sure that in the report, I will come back to you if I'm concerned about something. But at this point, you can expect that in the report, it's like you came in good faith. You cooperated through the whole thing. It's not comfortable and everyone hates it.
Right.
And we do too. And let's try to move on. That's one thing. The other thing having to do with the definition on force, application of physical technique or tactic. Mentioned some other things about chemical agents or weapons, but use on another person. So those ones just don't apply. Okay, so what if? What if there ends up being a punch to the face? And then someone's trying to see if that is a tactic or not. Or let's say they're kicking someone, or they've tackled someone, or whatever other kind of action.
Even though the interview is over, Rigby cannot restrain himself once again from insinuating that McTaggart did not perceive the situation correctly.
And that's exactly what's going on. The interrogation is over, and he's still trying to tell you why the chief isn't guilty of doing exactly what he did.
An officer could take on someone else. And maybe we never actually got it covered there. So the overall thing is that's when the state statute would come into place. So is it an assault? Is it a threat? Is it some kind of one of those intimidation things? So state statute would apply at that point in time. So that's why in this situation, the criminal part needed to happen. Because, doing this on someone's neck for maybe 2 seconds, 1 to 2 seconds doesn't fit within that, given that it's in this fight situation, escorting, transporting, but it does fit within the assault statute or some other piece of the statute. And so if someone had done wrong, it would still be caught there.
Right.
And that is still covered under what you were doing here. And so I would say that if that's how you felt, and we know that that's how it is, don't think you did anything wrong by sharing your concern.
Not at all.
It's a good thing to do. And I think that by saying that you're open to, there might have been other things going on, that's just, I didn't see those things. I just saw this concern. And just remember, policy requires immediate. I think that you're probably there. And then you go to your supervisor. If that supervisor's affected, then you go to the next supervisor.
Right.
We just can't have it be that it's like, oh, well, everyone in here can't be trusted. And so I'm just going to sit on it. And then some months are going to go by.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't work. So you can always go to, it lists other people in here. You go to the Attorney General's office. You go to the law enforcement agency that has jurisdiction. You can go to, it names all the places that you can go. You can go to the manager, the mayor. In this case, there's no policy that says whether it's supposed to be the manager or the mayor, but the statute says that it's supposed to be the supervisor of the agency head or whoever is affected by that. So you don't get it all in one place. So, okay, I think you did well. Okay? Okay. May I shake your hand?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Sorry to take you from training. Sorry for the stress. It's not intentional. Thank you.
Now's the fun part. I mean, the training.
Yeah.
The training.
We done?
Yeah, no, you're good. No, it's the training. The fun part is going to go down to the hospital.
Can I get back upstairs without?
Yeah.
Thank you.
After his interview with Rigby, McTaggart searched for a new job. He left Heber City PD and started working for a federal law enforcement agency. Two other officers also left the department and accused the city of retaliation. The case was settled for $7,800. Jared Rigby was up for a position that would have made him responsible for the training and certification of the approximately 9,000 officers, deputies, and troopers across Utah. After attention was drawn to this video, his placement was denied. Thank you for watching.
All right, y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and play the actual choking so y'all can see it.
It's taboo to tattletale on your administration.
You were under investigation for putting your hand on someone's throat. I just want to know what happened.
We could debate all day long. Right? Did he put his hands on his throat? Did he not put his hands? Was it an accident? Was it intentional? Right? Did he squeeze? Did he not squeeze?
He needs to be fired. This is what's wrong with law enforcement.
Earlier this year, the chief of the Heber City Police Department was placed on administrative leave, accused of choking a suspect while placing him in the back of a police car. For months, even after the chief was cleared of all wrongdoing, Heber City has refused to talk about the case, release public records, or even explain why the chief was under investigation. Tonight, in a Fox 13 News exclusive, you will be among the very first people outside of the department to see the body camera video. As Fox 13 investigative reporter Adam Hurwitz explains how officers feel that they've been retaliated against for crossing the thin blue line.
So what is ClickUp? ClickUp is an all-in-one productivity software where you can manage everything and anything.
Camera on. May I please have my glasses and my shoes? Thank you. Thank you. I don't want to fight with you guys.
On March 31st, paramedics were treating Jesse James Rodriguez. Minutes earlier, his wife called to report he was drunk and wanted him out of the house. When Heber City Police got there, officers say Rodriguez tried to grab one of their guns.
I will assault you. I will assault you.
Come on.
He said, I will assault you. I will assault you. Who says that? What officers says that to somebody who they're trying to apprehend? I will assault you. That was his words. That's crazy.
Chief Dave Booth was on scene. He says he was done being patient and decided it was time to take Rodriguez to jail. Officers say until this point, everything they saw was appropriate, but watch the chief's right hand as he struggles to get Rodriguez into the back of the police car.
I couldn't hear or tell if he was the suspect was breathing. Couldn't hear or tell. I did see that it was a grab and there was pressure placed on the trachea.
This man is a veteran Heber City police officer who left the department but is still too nervous to reveal his name or face. He is not one of the officers who reported the chief, but agrees with those who did, especially after reviewing body camera video.
We have an obligation to police ourselves. Nobody's above the law, and nobody's allowed to do whatever they want. I don't care if you're the chief of police. You can't do that to somebody that's handcuffed in the back of a police car. You can't do that.
Absolutely, it's a case that should be reviewed, especially in light of the position that the department took shortly before this happened regarding any sort of neck or choke restraint.
Chris Burbank used to be chief of the Salt Lake City Police Department. He's referring to an email sent out by Heber City's.
What y'all think about that? So that's the video of the interrogation. They were interrogating him for reporting that the chief choked this man out, and we can see that he choked him out, and he told him before, "I will assault you."
Use of force sergeant months prior to the incident, reminding officers that any type of choking technique is not allowed. In fact, he says Chief Dave Booth should not have even touched the suspect, especially with so many other officers standing around.
As the administrator, I never wanted to put my officers in a position to have to investigate me. That is just a horrible position to be in. But if it were to happen, boy, that is going to be the most open, transparent investigation that has ever been in the history of the organization, because I would never want anyone to accuse me of somehow covering up.
Heber City has not been transparent. Even after Chief Booth was cleared of wrongdoing, the city has refused to release body camera video or even explain why the chief was under investigation. All the video in this story has been obtained independently by Fox 13.
Absolutely. It is public information and should have been released.
You were under investigation for putting your hand on someone's throat. I just want to know what happened.
Which never happened.
We have the video, sir.
As the chief continues to deny what happened, we found the comment he gave us contradicts what he told state investigators.
Obviously, there was some force used to get him in the car. Would it be surprising to you if there was body cam or dash cam footage that showed your hand on his neck at one point?
No, I don't think it'd be surprising. I just viewed it as something I've done literally hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of times.
Think about that. He's done that hundreds of times.
In August, days after the state cleared him of criminal wrongdoing, the city sent out an email stating the chief is back to work because whatever the complaints were against him, they were not substantiated, found to be baseless and without merit.
When you say baseless and without merit, you're calling somebody a liar, and you're saying that this never happened.
State investigators tell Fox 13 they cannot explain the city's email because they never told Heber City the complaint was baseless or without merit.
Now that he's survived this, he was going to come after us and in any way that he could.
The day after the email, multiple officers tell Fox 13 the mayor called a mandatory police department meeting.
She was very upset. Somebody in our agency had gone to the media. She told us, and I quote her, and this is Colleen Potter from Heber City, that she believes in karma and karma's a bitch.
That is unethical. That is unethical, and whoever implied, suggested, hinted at it should no longer be employed.
City Attorney Mark Smedley verified the mayor's comments, but said he could not remember the context. The mayor has ignored all requests for comment.
And then they saved the chief for last. And this guy's angry when he's talking to us. I'm going to make you guys tell me who did this. I'm going to make you. And you're going to do what I tell you. And if you don't, I'm going to fire you.
It seemed very clear to me that the city's reaction to the complaint against the chief was violating Utah law.
It was retaliation.
Cameron Platt is the attorney representing Sergeant Jason Jarvie, one of the officers who reviewed the body camera video and filed a written complaint. He says whether the chief's use of force in this case was excessive is up for debate, but the law requiring officers to report concerns is not.
They could be criminally culpable for covering up. The way that the city treated it and reacted is much more important and much worse. If it was such a minor use of force, why so much effort to cover it up?
Sergeant Jarvie says his supervisors strongly encouraged him to take a demotion after reporting the chief. He has since left the department, quote, solely due to the city's retaliatory actions. Jarvie has provided Fox 13 a copy of his personnel file, showing he has never been disciplined. As part of the case, the mayor also placed both him and the chief under an internal investigation conducted by the sheriff's office.
This is done by his friend, Jared Rigby, the sheriff. They're friends.
Both the city and sheriff's office have refused to provide copies of the completed investigation. However, videos obtained by Fox 13 show Sheriff Jared Rigby repeatedly spoke on behalf of the city, not as a neutral third party, sometimes lecturing or threatening officers rather than asking questions.
There is no excessive use of force. And so your perception is wrong. What Dave Booth did is not even use of force. It really comes down to the future, your future in the police department.
Sure.
So you can dig in your heels and say,
And that's not what I'm doing.
this is how I feel and no one's going to change. And okay, that's your decision. You just won't get any trusted positions having to do with DT and use of force and sergeant and those kinds of things because you're not willing to learn and be open-minded to it.
I cannot believe you would even wander into that area. That is the creation of the thin blue line.
I'm here to tell you right now, they'll never tell on him again. They'll never do anything like that again. This will never happen again in Heber City. This is what's wrong with law enforcement.
Sheriff Jared Rigby has also ignored our requests for comment and refuses to provide a copy of his internal affairs investigation. Multiple officers have already left the department because of this case. Others say they're in the process of trying to do the same. Reporting in studio tonight, Adam Herbets, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Thanks, Adam. If you have questions.
All right, y'all. I know this is so wild. So the entire interrogation they had for the chief was because of the video you just saw, and it's obvious that he was choking the man or put his hand around his neck, what looks like a choke, and the way he was grabbing him and throwing him around is insane. But with that being said, AWB, I'm out. I'm gonna catch y'all on the next one. I just want to say thank you to everybody for being on here and joining me on this stream. And while we're at it, if you can, go ahead and grab my book, Eyes on Authority: How to Hold Public Servants Accountable from the Streets to the Screen, documenting the fight for freedom. So if you haven't already, go ahead and grab my book. It's going to give you the step-by-step, the walkthrough of how to exercise your rights. But with that being said, AWB, I'm out. I appreciate y'all. Thank you. God bless everybody. And see y'all on the next one. We had a lot of people on this stream. It's good. I hope to see y'all again on the next one. I want to do live streams more often. Again, I should say.